Very good. Well, today's topic, let me introduce the topics for the day while we wait for others to come in. So I'd like to get started. I've not done this presentation before. I don't know how long we'll run, but I anticipate it'll be about 30, 40 minutes. So I'd like to get started, then we'll open it up for questions at the end. But the topics are refresher training, and we're going to really dive into this whole thing about the importance of management and stakeholder buy-in so that we can effectively implement this Blue Dragon program in future clients and maybe even retrofit it in previous clients. And the whole point of it is it's coming from discussions we're having internally with our close-knit group of associates from a number of the labs and other clients like Bechtel. And I really credit Scott Trammell from Bechtel for pushing me in this direction. A lot of times organizations bring in Blue Dragon, let's say from the bottom up, from the middle up, and not really get buy-in from the associate lab directors, plant managers, executives, and it becomes a struggle. And so really we need to approach going forward when we go to, for example, I'm going to OPG, Ontario Power Group, Darlington, Pickering, the home office up in Ontario, Canada. And I'm going to have a 90-minute presentation with them to talk about incorporating Blue Dragon. Right. And we really need to approach it from this standpoint. So this is going to be the new basic building block for how we approach a new client and the importance of management buy-in, support, and how to actually execute a really good change management plan to make this happen. So I'd like to dive in, and we do have the full hour, so feel free to ask questions. And the first part of this is going to be all about the change management plan. And the second part will be some of the things that I've put together, and it's on the website, so you can all access this. And I'll show you that website page at the end here. And we'll glimpse into how to reach all of these handouts, templates, forums, things like that, that will help you out. And of course, if you and your associates can't sit through it all, or your friends have missed it, this is being recorded and will be put on our website so that you all can see this at any time down the road. All right, so let me begin and talk about how implementing Blue Dragon IPS represents this big opportunity. It's a big opportunity to implement a significant organizational change. And this requires a well thought out change management plan for a number of reasons. So let's start going through these. Number one, it introduces a fundamentally new approach. We're changing the way we solve problems. We're changing the way we do root cause analysis. We're challenging long established methods and mindsets for the organization. So this is a major shift, and major shifts demand not only the acquisition of new skills, but also a transformation in how the employees and leaders are going to think about and approach these challenges, these changes. Secondly, Blue Dragon often requires changes in organizational processes and reporting structures and decision-making frameworks. So think about that. It impacts multiple levels and multiple departments. It necessitates breaking down silos between organizations because we have to work together to solve problems, right? Third, this methodology emphasizes critical thinking and systems theory, systems analysis, and it's going to reveal deep-seated organizational issues or inefficiencies or deficiencies. And potentially that's going to lead to further changes in operations and strategy, and they need to be ready for that. And lastly, what I have here is that to fully leverage Blue Dragon IPS, it often requires a realignment of resources. We might think of different models to implement Blue Dragon, whether it's a centralized model or putting folks out in each organization. And that requires management support. It requires them to change their priorities. And it can meet a lot of resistance if we don't manage this carefully. And it has absolutely met with resistance. So given these far-reaching implications, we need a comprehensive change management plan. That's going to be essential to address the resistance, to ensure proper communication, to roll out the training properly so it's readily received and accepted, and to guide the organization through a transition to what will eventually be a more effective problem-solving culture. Also, you can talk about a learning organization You can talk about a continuous improvement culture. We expect to gain all of these things as we go through. And right off the bat, you can imagine that the importance of management buy-in and change management cannot be overstated, especially when implementing a transformative methodology like ours. This is really transformative, right? And so I'd like to talk about a couple of things here. Now, management buy-in serves as the cornerstone of successful organizational change. It provides the necessary leadership. They provide the resources and support to drive adoption and overcome any resistance. So management leadership is incredibly important. Now, when managers at all levels are committed to this change, they become powerful advocates. They lead by example. They inspire their team members to embrace the new approach, right? And their buy-in also lends credibility to this initiative, the improvement initiative, and it signals its importance, helps them align their strategic objectives around this implementation. Now, moreover, engaged managers are more likely to give us their time, their proper budget, and the personnel that we need for effective implementation. That's really important. They also play a crucial role in breaking down silos, fostering cross-functional collaborations, because now you're seeing that we do affect across the board as we tap into many, many resources, subject matter experts across the entire organization to solve a problem. And this is going to create a culture that values continuous improvement. So that's what's happening here once we get the management team engaged. Also, with strong management buy-in, without strong management buy-in, even the most promising change in the world is going to falter. It's going to be seen as optional. It's going to be seen as low priority. And we see that happening across all of our client sites. So in essence, management buy-in is a catalyst. It accelerates or not the adoption of Blue Dragon, and it's ensuring its integration into the organization's DNA. So ultimately, what we'd like to see is that management leads to sustained improvements in their problem-solving capabilities and overall performance. So that is all this big preface to how important it is for us to get management buy-in and also to get them to put together a change management plan. And guess what? We, myself personally, are now willing to go in and help them put together this change management plan. And there's a lot of models out there. In fact, I have my own procedures from the commercial nuclear sites on how to do this, right? And so what I've done after some research is found John Kotter's Leading Change. Leading Change is a great 8-step process that's been really recognized across many industries. And so I thought I'd use this as a framework. Why not? And so it's a great 8-step process. I'd like to actually go through the 8 steps here, and that's the bulk of this presentation. What does it take? What do we need to do? How do we need to work together, collaborate with management to roll out something as big as an entirely new model for RCA, as opposed to just sending people to training and then letting them flounder around while management doesn't understand what's going on. So, all right, fantastic. Let me get through and start off with step 1, creating a sense of urgency, right? How important it is to create this sense of urgency, right? If we don't have that, there's not going to be apparently be any need to do much of this. So we have a significant amount of overhead in recurring problems. Now I give you the calculator, right? There's a spreadsheet that calculates, and I think I have it on the next slide, that does the hidden cost of recurring issues calculator. And it's a very detailed spreadsheet, and I'll give you an example here shortly. But we need to change the way we're doing business because you don't understand that the hidden cost and on overhead is in the millions of dollars for our typical client sites. So cost is a huge issue, and cost speaks loudly. You know, most things, most organizations believe budget is king. Another need to change is that things haven't really evolved between 1920 and 1970, where a lot of the tools and techniques were developed. However, the world around us is changing dramatically, right? And these tools worked very effectively for a long time. However, now in the modern era, there are limitations to using these standard tools that have been out there for a long time. So we're going to honor the history of these tools. We're going to build on these tools and techniques. We're going to improve on them. We're going to lean them out and make them more agile. But we need to evolve from the traditional tools, which have been giving us more and more limited results as the complexities of our socio-technical work environments has gone sky high since the onset of the internet. And thirdly, the consequences of maintaining status quo in this modern socio-technical work environment. If you're standing still and you're not evolving, you're being left in the dust by the industry, by your competitors, by other industries. And go ahead and look that up anywhere you want on any source. And you'll see that if you're standing still, you're being left behind by the massive amounts of changes across all these industries. So here is actually an actual client site, and we talked about these numbers. And if we go to this calculator here, you're going to get to see the fact that you can download the copy by clicking on that link that you'll have on the PowerPoint. And this calculator walks you through a very detailed analysis of your labor rates and how many issues of certain levels of significance you have per year. So we use 5 A's, 100 Bravos, and 1,800 Charlies. So right around 2,000 a year. And we do the labor rate calculations and everything that it takes to not only analyze the problem, establish corrective actions, and then close the corrective actions. We're looking at $9 million a year for this prototypical site with about 8,000 employees. Now you have 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 condition reports a year. That number is going to be higher. So it is fascinating that folks never calculate these numbers, don't understand the cost of dealing with these thousands of issues. And you've heard me say many times, there are now 2,000 new root causes every year. So these recurring constant stream of course, mostly minor issues are evident that we're not really getting to the deepest seated causes. And they're lying there dormant and doing quite a lot of damage over the years. Some of those issues grow to be bigger issues, and they're caused by the same deep-seated causes. All right, let's go on to building a coalition, which is step 2. All right, so without a guiding coalition, the organization is going to continue to rely on traditional hierarchical ways of operating, and that's not going to serve them well in the long term. So let's talk about a couple of things that of what it takes. So we need to know who the key stakeholders are, who the influences are in the organization, not just the key decision makers, right? So we need to capture and bring together this group that will eventually be our guiding coalition. We need to find out who have been the early adopters. And at OPG, Fiona Walker and others have been trying to get us in for 4 or 5 years after sending a couple of people to training. They were never able to do it. We need to nurture those early adopters and turn them into change champions. And this will be accounted for in this change management plan. And thirdly, we need a diverse team. We need a diverse team. It can't just be, the QA organization or the contractor assurance organization. So we have a lot of different levels, functions, locations, ideas that we need to reach. And they have to be willing to work across the existing hierarchies, which, as you know, can be quite difficult because of all the silos. And we need folks that are committed to making the change, supporting the change initiative. So all this has to happen. A guiding coalition is extremely important. Right behind that is we need the vision, the strategy, the plan. We have to have a strategy for doing all this. And this is where the rubber starts to meet the road. So let's talk about this a little bit. All right, so what we need the organization and the executive leadership team to see is that what we offer is a solution to critical business challenges. Most organizational development issues, most deep-seated problems are caused by issues that are hidden from view. And it takes a certain depth of analysis to get there. We offer one of the best models to go and do that depth work, as Bill Toth usually says. We need the depth work to really figure out what's going on and then have a potential for success in fixing those things. Next, we need to align the Blue Dragon system with the organizational goals and values. And that is not as challenging as it sounds, but we need to put it on paper. We need to show that this supports a number of things, including from a big picture standpoint, learning organizations, continuous improvement, right? Problem-solving cultures, those kind of things. And breaking those down into key performance indicators for corrective action programs and recurring events and things like that, KPIs. And thirdly, we need to create this compelling vision that the organization wishes to establish a strong problem-solving culture, problem-solving excellence. And that has to be able to motivate the folks in the organization. So think about the challenge there. We have to clarify how this future state is going to be any better than what we're doing now. And I keep talking about behaviors. You remember that in our courses, we specifically talk about cultures is actually the integration of all of the behaviors of the people in the organization over time. So we have to be able to show how we're going to establish a new set of behaviors that supports learning organizations, continuous improvement, problem-solving cultures. And we have to actually put those behaviors down on paper. I was saying it last week to our class at Oak Ridge. Those behaviors have to be clearly laid out, and they sound like, okay, when someone knocks on your door and says, I'm here because I was asked to lead a root cause team, they're going to jump to and say, all right, I know it's important. How can I help you? What resources do you need? Who do you need from our organization, from an SME standpoint, to support you? That's the kind of strong problem-solving culture we should be looking for. Right now, it's the opposite. It's like, I don't have time for you. I can't spare my resources. That's going to cost too much time. I'm busy doing my mission-critical stuff. So we need to define what this strong RCA culture looks like. And we need to create a strategic plan to manage it all. And I do want to point this out. It's not on my slide, but I did have it in previous lessons that you've seen. I equate root cause analysis with safety. Root cause analysis is paramount to nuclear safety, industrial safety, security, safeguards, all these things that are important to us, environmental health and safety. Because think of it this way, unless we actually are willing to do the deck work, the root cause work, you're willing to tolerate repeat events. So if you cannot tolerate repeat events, you have to be doing a root cause analysis on it. And the problem is we haven't been because it's too hot, too heavy, takes too long, too many resources, all the tired excuses. Well, I set out to fix that with Blue Dragon about a decade ago, and this is where we are today. All right, so that's important. The plan itself, we need to develop a phased communication and an implementation strategy, right? So we have to know the stakeholders who are going to implement this, lay out the future, and how it's going to become a reality for us. So we need a milestones chart, all of the normal things you expect in a project management plan. We have to have communication plan that tailors the messages to the different groups at the different levels of the organization. We have to sort of anticipate the problems, proactively address these concerns, address the resistance that we're going to expect because it's always there, and try to leverage, in today's modern era, many different communication channels available to us. Right? So it's not just email, lots of ways to get the messages across this day and age. Very good. Step number 4, and this is a good one, enlist a volunteer army. And a little bit of a surprise to me. I wasn't sure what that meant, but in every organization, I have found folks that are truly excited about doing this work, especially after they go through training. They're truly excited, ready, willing, anxious, able, all of that, right? And then what happens? Somebody pops their bubble. So how do we avoid that? Well, all right, that's what this is all about. So we need to enlist and sort of harness this excitement. We need to give them a chance to participate, to do the Blue Dragons, to empower them to act. And I didn't know this, but it kind of jives with what I've been putting in some other documentation, that we would like to train 15% of your organization, because that is how you build momentum. And this John Carter actually agrees with this. That's his number. We need to give people a reason to become stronger critical thinkers and problem solvers. And I think we have that. As you have heard us say many times over, critical thinking and complex problem solving are two of the biggest soft skills that you need in the age of artificial intelligence. Yet you don't get that too many places. Certainly, academia is a bit slow to give you this kind of education. As you know, if you've done any kind of research in critical thinking, 50% of all graduates today from college get a solid F in critical thinking, and there's multiple studies on that. All right, so, and once they start working, this volunteer army recognize their efforts, keep them engaged, keep them doing more. I'm telling these recent graduates, go out and do some significance level Charlie investigations and practice the skills. And you need encouragement to keep doing these skills because you're going to be finding good things to solve, good things that will help the organization improve performance, right? And also spread the word. Encourage this volunteer army to recruit other folks, get them to take the training, to understand the importance of critical thinking and what it can do for their career long term. So this is a key step. Key step number 5, there are always going to be barriers and impediments. And we'd like to consider Blue Dragon as an innovation, right? It's an innovative transformational process for doing root cause analysis. But there's going to be barriers. Let's talk about some of those, right? And I'll say this, I like this point. Innovation is less about brand new ideas and more about knocking down barriers that impede their progress, right? So removing the barriers is as or more important than the innovation itself. There's this reluctance to change, obviously. So we have a lot of obstacles and mindsets that get in the way, and you hear it all the time. We've always done it this way. We've got to get past those mindsets. There's also, and the folks last week heard me say this over and over, we have a lot of self-imposed management practices, a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of administrivia, and we do it to ourselves. And so by leaning out the RCA process, Blue Dragon really takes that step forward in eliminating a lot of the bureaucracy associated with root causes and the self-imposed practices. But we have to make them see that and actually transform that into our documents, our documentation, our processes, and remove and update these inefficient processes and the archaic norms. So one of the nice things that you heard in class last week was that we're not telling you to throw away what you learned. We need events and causal factors, charts, descriptions, because we need timelines. We need to understand cause and effect analysis a little better than just the plain 5 whys. We need to understand barrier analysis, the way we do it, analysis of defenses. So the old ways may be passé, not as effective, but certainly they're the building blocks for what we're doing. So we can keep those, keep training on those, and then we'll show you a more efficient way to use those same skills, the best aspects of those skills. And lastly, we need the freedom for employees to work across boundaries. That's another impediment. We have silos, and at some of the client sides, we've come in over here under the QA side, perhaps contractor assurance side. But the weapons side, which might be 80% of the lab, doesn't hear it, doesn't understand it, doesn't want to change the way they do it. And we need to work across all these silos to create real impact, as the bullet says, to really make the changes that are going to be very beneficial to the entire site, not just these isolated instances. And lastly, we want to encourage management to lead by example. That is a huge way to remove barriers. If management can step up, lead the way, in fact, take the leadership role in some of these Blue Dragon investigations, become the lead facilitator. I'm happy to see that PNNL sent one of their directors to our class. And same thing at TVA Nuclear. Had a manager attend the course, and he led a reactor scram and another issue here recently, and that's very effective. So leaders can set the tone, and if they understand what's going on, a few key personnel, they'll be able to lead by example. That's very powerful as well. All right, step number 6, the wins. We need some quick wins. So when we launch something, let's say at Ontario Power, let's say Darlington, Pickering, pick us up. we're going to have to figure out a plan to get some short level Charlies, Blue Dragons out there to show them how efficient this is, how it works, and build on up. Maybe a big case where they bring in one of our external consultants, and I have Betsy here, Betsy Dunn, and Bill Toth, who've worked with me in the past. And we can go out and solve a significant issue for the organization and have those folks observe or be on our team. So the faster we get some quick wins on the board, I think it'll start to catch fire faster. So identify where we can get some quick wins, collect them, categorize them, communicate them, and that energizes the organization, and that it helps drive change, right? The more people see this as an efficient, effective process, the more they're going to want to do it. And so we need to show them where it resulted in process improvements, how many lessons learned we were able to get out of this, what new behaviors we established in terms of the things that are important to us: critical thinking, problem solving, learning teams, continuous improvement. All right. And then celebrate. In many methods, including like the 4AD method, the last step in the 4AD method is celebrate. Don't forget to celebrate. Communicate your successes. Make it meaningful, right? Outside the organization, not just the ones that are already invested. Make it tangible so they can actually see what the tangible effects were, the value of solving problems truly to the depth that we go to. Not to be critical, but I have to say that the vast majority of investigations, whether apparent causes or even root causes, that are done across all industries, stop too soon or too shallow, don't really get to the issues, and don't really solve the true problems that are causing many, many issues year after year. They go unresolved. Anyway, you've heard me say that too many times. And use these successes to build momentum and credibility for the implementation of this. So these wins will have a lot more impact that we can scale them across the entire organization. Again, helps breaks down those silos and really turns into an enterprise level implementation, which is what I think is the most value add aspect of Blue Dragon, an enterprise solution to turn the entire enterprise into strong critical thinkers and problem solvers. Very valuable, what it could do to the bottom line. The last couple here, how do we sustain this improvement, this acceleration? Well, there's going to be complacency, and it's happened at a lot of client sites. You see this initial surge, we train a lot of folks, and the leadership team is not quite there. We didn't really have a transition plan. We didn't have the buy-in at the highest levels, and complacency sets in, and the process starts to erode. The use of Blue Dragon starts to erode, and that's something that's been sort of a burr under my saddle, because looking for that long-term sustainability has been an issue for us, a well-known issue for us, and we talk about it in our inner circle. This is one of the ways that we're going to get after it, is to help with this change management / transition plan. We need to use the improvements that we get out of these Blue Dragon investigations in performance and processes and policies to build the credibility and maintain, sustain this momentum, right? So we have to communicate and make the dots, connect the dots between the behaviors and the success. And the behaviors are, we got after it. We thought more critically. We were not biased. We went deeper. We used a lot of SMEs. We didn't stop too soon at the symptom level. We put in some really good corrective actions. We have to connect these specific behaviors to the success and the outcomes, and that again builds momentum and credibility. And we have to help them recognize that the organization has this new system called Blue Dragon that solves problems with speed, agility, and it is an innovation that directly contributes to the bottom line. That has to be communicated and spelled out at the highest levels. We need, I call it the wood in the wagon. We need the proof of concept. We need the wins. We need the examples, the wins, to put in front of management. And only one site, it was Savannah River, actually put us in our annual report to the Department of Energy. And they talked about implementing Blue Dragon, and they talked about the positive results they achieved at Savannah River with the use of Blue Dragon in terms of contractor assurance. So that was we don't get that kind of press very, very often. the third bullet here, with this improved talent and experience that we're creating, we could go after wicked problems. What are your deep-seated wicked problems? I've done a couple. I consider looking into, from top to bottom, a procurement program at one of the labs that was holding up a multi-billion-dollar plutonium pit construction project. That was a wicked problem. I considered looking at a national security threat that couldn't be solved for 5 years. That was a wicked problem. And both of those took 2 and 3 weeks, respectively. So we need to find these significant complex issues to go after, because we have the capability, we have the experience at my level, and of course, at a certain point, that'll be passed on to you, and we can get those experience levels up in all of your organizations. So let's look for some of these giants to go kill. Now, institutionalizing this change, changing the culture. This is the end goal, right? We want this whole thing institutionalized. Now, the culture is not going to change until after behaviors change. And you know our model, right? Behaviors are impacted by our values and beliefs. But I can only see how people behave. And it is the integration of these behaviors over time that allow me to tell what is your culture. It will improve, but behaviors have to improve. And as you know, that takes time, right? So cultural changes comes after we are deep into this transformation, which means all of these other things have been taking place. It's not going to come right away. It's not at the beginning. It takes time. And these new practices must be institutionalized and deeply rooted and anchored and layered on top of the old ways to give us a better output. So that has to happen. And lastly, you can tell when a change is institutionalized when these new ways of critical thinking and solving problems become part of the fabric of the organization. And I like that language. It's pretty cool language. So I'm going to sum up here and say that, hey, these management changes, these change management steps that we're talking about, this is the roadmap for a transformational journey. But implementing Blue Dragon might actually seem like going on this journey, and I'll throw this back up. It just might seem like going on a journey to a distant planet, right? Unfamiliar, complex, a bit daunting, but it's not as complicated as interplanetary travel, right? So think of it more as a road trip, going just to a new and exciting destination. It's going to be fun, but there's going to be turns and twists, bumps in the road. We expect all that. Now, we need to create the right map, and that's what this change management plan is going to do for us. And we need to prepare the team. And with those things in hand, the journey is going to be both manageable and rewarding. All right. So I'll go through these summary points. Initiating, sustaining, and institutionalizing change requires a plan for integrating Blue Dragon. The plan requires a strategic vision and the implementation plan to embed it into the organization's processes and decision-making frameworks. We need internal champions and trainers, and internal champions and trainers are required to ensure long-term sustainability and effectiveness. And by continuously measuring, communicating, and celebrating the impact of Blue Dragon on the organization performance, that's going to also help change the culture, right? So these are the kind of things that I think are important. This picture.
Why? She's a bone stealer.
And now the last thing I got for you.
Sure, I got him a long neck. You want to see this toy?
Can we mute? There we go. This is a list of things that I've made available, except for the free coaching. It's not on the website and the national forums, although the recordings of the national forums are on the website. I'd simply like to share how you can access the hidden cost calculator, the critical decision matrix, a scoring checklist, a management oversight checklist, and they've all been updated, by the way. So if you go to our website here and you go to resources, and you see where I'm pulling down, there's a Blue Dragon reference library. And if you click on it, the password is capital O, capital U, 812, the number's 812. Reference to Eddie Van Halen there for those of you that aren't that old. And you see here, handouts, templates, answer keys, papers. So over here in the handouts, we have the ROI calculator you can download. We have a critical decision matrix with 6 examples, actually, including how to elect the next president of the United States. So I'll just call this up for fun because let's see if I can put it on screen here. We have templates for screening and hiring a candidate and buying a house and choosing the right college to attend and choosing the best career path, choosing the best job. And here it is, electing the next president, right? So we have some fun things here. Back to the handouts, we have a checklist to ensure consistency. And in this case, this is a scored checklist, right? And we have a scoring system that follows every phase so you can track your own progress and score your own progress. So that's important. And let me go back. Oh, where'd it go? Here we go. And so all of these things that I mentioned on that other slide are here. Fact-finding and critique guidance. There's a new BD2 certification form that those of you that would like to be certified by us. Here's the management oversight checklist, which is also new. And what this does is allow managers to engage in a most appropriate way. So what I'm giving managers is what questions to ask at different parts of the process. And there's space for them to use this as a checklist if they like. So here's what they should ask during phase 1 and before they get started, and phase 2 and phase 3 and so on. So it's a nice checklist for management to engage in the proper way. So there's that for management. Here's the local community of practice charter that some of you, like Los Alamos National Lab, worked together with us to put it together. So there's a nice template for the local chapters that we hope you establish. And many more templates, many more things that are around here, including all new answer keys for case studies 2 through 11. And each one of these is just a nice, it's the chart itself that you can navigate all the way around. Okay. So you can actually see all of the exercises that you did in class in case you need a reminder of what happened. Okay, very good. So that's what's available. I wanted to pass that along. And that brings us to the end of our presentation. That is the end. Let me reset my slides here and open it up for questions from anyone.
I have a comment, no questions, but Rob. So I think
Yes,
it's a excellent presentation defining what a good change management plan must have to successfully implement Blue Dragon. Is the expectation that management would take this and then go figure out the how?
The expectation is that they work with me to figure out the how. I certainly have a lot of input and would like to offer free services to work out this change management plan. So I can't do it for you, obviously, but you would have a hard time doing it without me. So it needs to be a partnership. Yeah. But we need an outline. And I thought if they can agree to this outline, this way to move forward, we can certainly work together and lay out what it takes, or a version of this. This is not in stone, certainly.
Right. But how practical do you think it would be to at least give them a starting point? So in addition to this, which tells them the what, have, like, for whether it's for each of these sections or maybe just for some of the critical sections of those steps, just some examples of the how.
Oh, sure. I love the idea of creating a draft template.
Yeah.
Right.
With something that you could even during the meeting, like I was just thinking, when you're talking about the step, you need to socialize, and I can't remember the exact, drive, celebrate. That was it. Celebrate the successes. Okay. That's the what. Well, how do you do that? something you can just ask at the time. Okay, well, what periodic announcements do you have or bulletins do you put out? Okay, you're going to make a commitment that once a month or whatever, you're going to include something about Blue Dragon in that. Basically just give them. It's almost like real time, just simple construction or the genesis of the how of the change management plan. Because I think if you just give this presentation and then walk away and wait for them to come to you to ask for help on the how, I'm just afraid it's not going to be successful.
No, excellent point.
Yeah.
And this is an ongoing and evolving concept
Yeah.
to help.
But no, I think
with
this is an
change
excellent
management.
and-
So it's
yeah,
the
and I
first
like your-
step.
And I like your change management model. I've seen several different change management models, and I think this is a nice simple one that people could fairly easily go figure out how to implement each one of these steps that you've outlined, what it needs to contain.
Correct. And as I was going through this presentation and building it today for this forum, I had ideas. I thought, oh, this is how we might do this. And so
Yeah.
to go from this PowerPoint to something more detailed, I don't think is a stretch. And of course, there'll be holes to fill in, blanks to fill in by the
Yes.
client.
Yeah.
And I'm going to actually, I'm excited to experiment with OPG in July. I have a 90-minute with Ontario Power Group, and we're going to experiment. Between now and then, I'd like to enlist the help of some of the folks in our inner circle to help me perhaps create this draft or look over my shoulder as I create the draft. That'd be much appreciated. So I know you all have great ideas and how you would do it and how it would have gone better had we had this for the sites in the past. So, all right, better late than never. We're going to do it moving forward, and we might even be able to retrofit in some cases to give it a new spark at some sites that are sort of marginally implementing Blue Dragon. We might be able to spark them with this approach, meeting with the executives, throwing this out, putting it in front of them, and seeing if we can't reinitiate or reinvigorate the institutionalizing of Blue Dragon.
Yep. No, very good.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Other questions, comments?
Hey, Rob, I'm listening to this with interest from the standpoint of, how is this distinct from or complementary of a movement towards, a broader quality culture? The watching Boeing's woes right now is, kind of interesting. It just seems like in a lot of ways, and I talked about that in that blog article about recommitting to Kaizen. It seems like we've kind of moved away from the focus on quality. At least that's what your initial impression is. I don't have any data from the commitment to quality by generally in industries. It seems like Boeing just is one of these case examples that you could talk about for a long time. But it seems to me that we have a unique circumstance inside of the national laboratory system, and then even more so with researchers outside of the just the safety and security type thing, where it's just been a real challenge to try to institute a quality culture or get a commitment to quality. And in the research folks, what does that even mean? So that's kind of a few branching thoughts, but I see the recommitment to. I mean, I see Blue Dragon as a quality tool. So how is it distinct, or how is it the same?
Well, fantastic topic. And what's interesting is that not only do I wholeheartedly agree, I have spent 36 years in oversight myself, including the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, site quality manager, and so on. And when I started to develop what was the initial stages of Blue Dragon, it was while I was in quality at a nuclear plant. So now I see clearly the correlations, and I agree with you totally, to the point where I've already presented to the American Society for Quality 3 webinars on how to modernize oversight by combining the Blue Dragon premise with quality tenets. And so I've already shown them and have an actual presentation prepared for modernizing oversight, quality assurance, quality control, other kinds of oversight, blending the quality assurance requirements with cause and effect analysis to get deeper and get better findings and actually improve performance using the quality resources in a more meaningful way, rather than pointing out the obvious, the symptomatic issues and calling those findings. And I actually did that for a living and got notoriety at the commercial nuclear sites with IMPO, with WANO as well. I was asked to help Slovenia and South Africa with quality improvement initiatives because of these tactics. So Bill, we are 1000% on the same page. I'm not sure that I've thought about turning this into an aspect of Blue Dragon, an extension of Blue Dragon. But it's a great idea to perhaps Blue Dragon 4.0 could start delving into how we can marry up with quality, security safeguards, ESNH and some other areas and show how we can easily mesh with what they're doing to make them better. So we'll continue to pull that thread. Great observation. Betsy, go ahead, Betsy.
Hey, yeah, good presentation. I think one of the things I was thinking about, though, like a really good change management facilitator typically walks into a place and they sort of find out, what people like about the process, and then they find out what people don't like about the process, and then you sort of build your strategy on that because you want to keep the stuff that's good, but you want to change the stuff that people don't like. And then if we can use Blue Dragon to sort of frame that thought, I think that would probably go a long way. I know one of the things that we've had success with in the past is the fact that, Blue Dragon isn't like this brand new thing. It's just taking all these wonderful parts of these different processes that we've used like for many years, and we're kind of plucking all the best pieces of it and we're building that into this process. And so I think the more that you can kind of help move that message through and get that ingrained in the management team that you're trying to like get buy-in, I think that'll resonate. And I know I'm sure it's different for the nuclear power plants and elsewhere. I know kind of the DOE world most, but we've had this methodology in DOE that dates back many years, and so many of
Decades.
so many of the causal analyses processes that we come across at these various labs, they basically say like, oh, if it's if it's this level of event, you can do you can do a lesser investigation, but if you have a pretty significant event, you have to do a formal root cause. And not only do you have to do a formal root cause, but you have to do, 2 or sometimes even 3 different methodologies. And so the fact that we can show them, look, Blue Dragon, I think when I counted once, it has like 6 different methodologies sort of all built in. And so if you're able to like, provide that message to say, hey, you don't have to do, 3 separate investigations any longer. You're going to look at it this, one time, but you're going to pull in all these different ways of sort of analyzing the situation. So that's going to then get into, your cost of doing it. I think that gets factored into the cost. So just as a thought.
No, very well put. And I agree with everything you're saying, Betsy. It's really foundational to doing a successful change management, going in and pulsing them what's going on, right? And the whole thing about past practices with using multiple tools to get at the root causes, that again shows you the inefficiencies of traditional ways. And I lived that for 2 decades and started to get a headache. And so I decided to try to change it. Thank you, Betsy. And Barb, good to see you.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
I had some
Barb.
trouble. I had some trouble with Zoom getting in. I just want to mention, because of the last 2 comments too, that it's a fairly frequent thing that's happening at DOE facilities now, that they have a contractor assurance department, a CAS department, and underneath that contractor assurance, they often put quality, change management, ORPS, injury illness reporting, assessments, and lessons learned. And if you listen to the, with your change management, I'll have to go back and look at the slides because I had trouble with, like I said, today with the Zoom. But when you look at change management, that almost always is there, and they realize and want a more efficient way of doing that. So I just thought I would bring in the aspect of CAS. As you know, at Idaho, I was a CAS manager, and really at Hanford a couple times too. So anyway, I think that when you use those inclusive terms that one has some lessons learned in it, some change, some injury, illness, lots of quality, various parts of quality. And when you use those terms, it gets people used to the idea. They understand how CAS encompasses various areas, and maybe they could realize we need a tool that encompasses various things too. Just a thought.
Good thoughts, Barb. Appreciate that. And of course, CAS is often the organization that brings us in because they encompass quality assurance.
And they're trying to do a causal analysis and they need help.
Exactly. They manage criteria 16, right? 10 CFR 50 Appendix B, criteria 16. Corrective action programs. And those are the ones that require root cause analysis. So that's kind of the tie. That brings us in. So I agree with you wholeheartedly. And yes, I agree with using that kind of language and having them readily identified with what we're doing as being very complementary with what CAS is doing. So that will be helpful.
Agree. Thank you.
Thank you, Barb. Very well. Are there any other comments or questions? Well, it has been fun. For me, always. I enjoy getting all this information out to everyone. This was not as much as a refresher training as this is more of a how to institutionalize Blue Dragon a bit better, because we have had issues trying to do that. And Fiona Walker from OPG is actually on the call. That's her in her car. Fiona, you better not be driving. I can see your phone moving around. But you and I can talk about this strategy, this change management plan. And we'll coordinate things before we talk to OPG on July the 18th. So, yeah, I got your heart. Very good. Thank you, Fiona. Well, everyone, thanks a lot. We had a lot of organizations represented today, as usual. And as always, our doors are open. Please call us, book an appointment with us if you need some help on anything. Happy to help you. You're part of our Blue Dragon Nation, and it's been a pleasure. Look for this video recording in our website next Monday or Tuesday so you can pass it along to others who need to see it. I'll stick around in case anyone wants to stay around, but thank you so much. Until next time, we'll see you next month.
Thanks, Rob.